Let's celebrate these guys. 4 Mariner All-Stars, Brock. There's a debate here, certainly, and we'll dig into it, but I think it's worth just saying. All 4 of these guys, pretty freaking cool. 4 All-Stars for the first time since 2018. They're all young. There's a decent chance that all these guys are continuing to get better. Cal, obviously, having the breakout, insane, unbelievable superstar season. Bryan Woo, as consistent as anybody and absolutely deserving of being an all-star. And then Andres Muñoz has been nearly perfect. God, you could almost put Matt Brash on here as well. J.P. Crawford, I think, has an outside case. Unfortunately, the position, I think, is going to make it hard for JP. But, yeah, in a world where everybody gets one, so it's hard because you got to throw a random White Sox on there and you got to throw, like, it gets hard, right? Some of these guys end up getting put on that aren't entirely deserving, and that shrinks the roster. Getting 4, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and it just feels real, right? You go back and you look at all these different All-Stars through the years, and you can see, like, when the organization made a turn from Nelly and Robinson Cano, and just kind of from, all right, that level of veteran player and that older team kind of peaked, and we're going to reset this thing. And, you know, to see just your pitchers every single year, to see a Kirby and a Logan Gilbert and now Bryan Woo, right, all get to that All-Star game, to see Mooney in back-to-back seasons. So you see it on the pitching side, to see it on the positional side with your homegrown guys. Julio, you signed as a teenager, and Cal, you drafted in the 3rd round, to see those guys drafted and developed, and in Cal's case, become one of the 3 best players in all of baseball. It is a day, yeah, I think you celebrate. And it was sure nice to have a 5-2 homestand, take care of business, to get here at 48 and 42, be a game out of the top spot in the wild card, right, to kind of have some momentum going as well. It feels good. And tough road trip, no question. The Bronx and Detroit, probably 2 of the hardest places you could go before the All-Star break, but man, this team's been a pretty resilient fighting crew. So, definitely a day yesterday to celebrate those 4 guys.
Well, so just to go through them individually, and we'll do Julio last so we can kind of dig into that conversation. But starting with Cal, I mean, we spent a bunch of time an hour ago talking through how Cal is the most intriguing Mariner. I objectively hysterical that I said he wasn't in the top 10. He has been the most interesting conversation about this team. He's the most interesting part of this team. And that's not a shot at the team. It's a compliment to Cal. He has been the most interesting conversation, the biggest thing to watch.
So how has he done that? Just to take a step back.
I don't have any idea.
Did it feel any different in the spring? Did it look any different?
No.
You know, there's times you see these guys and maybe the biggest case was Chris Carson a few years ago when Chris Carson came back with 15 pounds of extra muscle, and you're like, oh, goodness gracious, this guy's ready to run through walls. And, you know, you kind of see, or you could see Russell Wilson in 2012, like, wow, the way that season ended, I can't wait for 13. Was there any sense whatsoever in spring training?
Well, obviously not from me.
That this
Cal talked about that with McAfee, if you guys want to listen.
No, not really. I mean, I actually had a pretty bad spring training in general. So it's kind of funny how it goes sometimes. I was trying to get ready for the season like a normal year, and things started clicking, you know, early on, and just kind of stayed the course. Really, you know, I think when you play 162 games, it's a lot. It's a lot mentally, it's a lot physically, and a lot can change. And throughout a season, you go through a lot of ups and downs, and when you go through those downs, you can't really kind of stray off the path. So I think that's the biggest difference for me this year is, you know, in the past I've tried to change things or maybe try to make adjustments that weren't technically needed, and this year I've just really trusted the plan and what I've been trying to do.
Okay, so that's it. I'd say there's 3 other tangible things. I'd say health's a part of this, because the last couple of years he played through a torn ligament in his thumb for the last month and plus and even a playoff run, right? He just was really battered and beat up over the course of last season too. Feels, even though he's played a ton of games, you know, he's been able to DH a bunch thanks to Mitch being here, and he just feels and looks fresh. That's 1. I think 2, experience, right? Just experience does help. That I've been down this road. I kind of know how to do it. It kind of hit to his point right there. And then lastly, a torpedo bat on both sides of it. To think that is a 0 factor would be hard for me to imagine. It's a piece of equipment that you feel good about. Like, you know, it's a great driver. It's a great wedge. It's a great putter. It's a great, I'm feeling great with this. And whether it's placebo, whether it's real, whether, you know, getting more mass within his swing to a certain part of that swing, to the barrel of it, whatever. Like, those are some tangible things. But yeah, man, to do this, to be the best catcher in the history of baseball in the first half of a season, pretty darn remarkable.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to the question of why now, other than the word and all your thoughts are.
Oh, by the way, a contract too. Let's sort of that is, and maybe a fourth that we don't think has any tangible impact, that it's just money, but to get security of nearly $100 million as well, to change your agents right in the off season to go get a deal done and get a deal done. I think you'd probably have to throw that at least in the hopper as well, of something being a little bit different, right? To not have to have any concern and any worry about that for the years and years and years and years to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Consistency is the word I would use. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably the word I would use, is consistency, just because we've seen him even in the minors have these moments, these weeks where he puts it together and looks like, the greatest hitter in baseball. And he did that, right? Remember those days where we'd be like, hey, look, another crazy Cal week where he's got 5 home runs or whatever for Double-A. Well, he's doing it now, right? I mean, like, he's just doing it, it feels like every single day, and he's done it now over the course of the season. So Cal, obviously, just unbelievable. For Bryan Woo, that's the word again, right? Isn't it consistency there also?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Durability, posting, every time out. We started to see this last year, right? This is one, whereas Cal feels like a little bit out of the holy cow, where did this come from? I think with Woo's second half and in particular close to last year, where his command was off the charts, where those whip numbers and every next level metric was ridiculous, you started to wonder and see, you just kind of put him behind Logan, because he was the all-star and the number one starter now. You kind of put him behind Bryce, because Bryce too had a second half last year that was uncommon. But to see Woo do this consistently every single outing, go 6+ innings this year for a guy who had real durability concerns the previous couple seasons, Salk, yeah, just phenomenal for him. And one of our favorites as well, because as you've said, is thoughtful and introspective and as non-cookie cutter as you're going to get to.
And he's the poster child here for your draft and development, right? I mean, Cal as well, obviously they've done a heck of a job drafting and developing him. And it was interesting hearing Aaron Goldsmith point out over the weekend that Joey Bart was the number 2 overall pick as a catcher for the Giants to replace Buster Posey. Mm-hmm. And you see him with Pittsburgh now, a franchise later, and he's nothing. I mean, like, he's not a good player. Cal drafted in the 3rd round of that same draft. Unfreaking believable. And as you said, one of the 3 best in baseball. So that's a testament to your drafting and developing. But I would say Woo is the ultimate, right? I mean, like, where he was selected later in the draft, barely pitched in college, tremendous job by Scott Hunter, and then the entire development staff. And specifically, because Woo mentioned it, I keep coming back to it, and that is the mental skills part of it. And he told us it really helped him kind of figure it out in the minors. And it feels like every single week he starts, we get a press conference from him or just a post-game scrum where he's saying something that makes me think he's just listening to his mental skills coach and applying it. The best example is when he talked about video game levels, trying to challenge himself throughout the year. Like, each inning gets a little harder, like another level in a video game. Hey, whatever you got to do. It feels like he's totally bought into that right now.
Yeah, and pretty cool reward, as it was for Kirby, as it was for Logan last year, right? Just really a reward for all of that work and all the sacrifice. And this has not been a linear path, right? There has been struggle throughout college. There's been struggle the last couple of years. I'm sure there was moments a season ago, especially in the first half of it, like, man, is this elbow going to hold up? Am I going to ever be able to do this thing consistently? And to just put a capital C on consistent here in his every single start out, pretty cool feather in his cap.
Here's what Cal had said about him before he was named to the All-Star team.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a rock, right? I mean, obviously, was it 17 starts or something, 6 innings? That's what a frontline guy does, and he's a stopper. So he's been that guy, that consistent, force in our rotation this year. And while we've had some injuries, and he stepped up big time, and he's taken that next step in his kind of career and taking ownership and who he is as a pitcher and how he wants to go about his business. And I'm very proud of him, and he's doing great things. I think he should be an all-star. So hopefully we find out Sunday or whenever it is they announce those. So
it'd be funny is to talk to some of his Cal Poly teammates and be like, "Hey man, could
right?
do you ever imagine what do you have, like a 7 ERA at Cal Poly? Like, this dude's going to be a starter. This dude's going to have 17 starts of 6+ innings, 107 innings in the first half, a 0.95 whip. He's going to be a major league all-star at some point. What would his Cal Poly teammates say? Like, who?
No, he's not. No.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I talked to Brooks Lee a little bit when the Twins were in town, who was a top 10 pick in his own right, who played with Woo at Cal Poly. And it was along those lines. He said, look, you could always see the stuff,
right,
but to see him put it all together like this is pretty amazing. Pretty impressive.
All right, so Andres Muñoz we'll give a few minutes to here as well. The numbers are absurd. The numbers last year were absurd when he was an all-star. They're almost better across the board. ERA last year, 2.12. This year, he's literally cut it exactly in half, 1.06. It's exactly one half of what it was a year ago, 1.06 as of this morning. He is giving up 1/3 as many home runs per 9 innings. Last year, 0.9. This year, 0.3. Walks are down from 3.9 per 9 to 3.4. Strikeouts are up just a tick from 11.7 to 11.9. It's not quite the 13 or 13.5 that he had a few years ago, but still nearly 12 strikeouts per 9 innings. And then maybe, and obviously with those two numbers, this makes sense, the strikeout to walk is almost 3.5 compared to 3 a year ago. I mean, like, he's gotten better at everything. And he's converted already 21 saves. You know how many saves he had last year? 22. Isn't that crazy?
In the first half?
No.
In the first half?
He had 22 saves last year. Now, they used him differently, right? It was a little bit more of the put him in the biggest moment as opposed to use him traditionally in the ninth. But 21 saves already this year compared to 22 last year total. One of the big reasons the Mariners are where they are this year is the bullpen's just been a lot better. Muñoz has been great both years, but you've had Matt Brash. Spire's been a different pitcher. Like, the bullpen's just been better this year.
So you can win these 1-0 games. So when those guys depart after 6 or 6 in the third, if you're not holding on as he did a bunch last year, especially into August and September of last year, when those injuries really derailed them. And Andres, of all these all-stars, there just cannot be a sweeter human being. I mean, a humble. Talk about all those things with Cal. Andres is exactly the same kind of guy. I mean, just a gentle.
I hope his brothers drive again from Mexico.
Spirit.
Remember his brothers driving 38 hours or something to go see him last year? I hope they do that again to Atlanta. All right. Well, that leads you to Julio Rodriguez, who, and by the way, that means that 4 of the 5 starters in your rotation have now been all-stars. Just incredible. It's another guy in your bullpen for a second year, and honestly, Matt Brash has been just as good as Muñoz, just not for quite as long. And that leads you to Julio, who is now your 3rd-time All-Star, Julio Rodriguez. And, yeah, there's some people out there that are frustrated. And George Springer's probably got a pretty good case to be made that he's had a better season so far than Julio playing the outfield. There's a few guys. Joe Adell has a pretty good case. Who else is on the list of kind of snubs that could make a...
People talked about Ceddanne Rafaela.
Yeah, is another name. So there's some guys that can make the Red Sox center fielder. He's good. Okay. He can pick it. I think Julio's an all-star. I've been sort of arguing this on and off. It's funny because the offensive numbers aren't necessarily, great. And we've seen some of the ups and downs and struggles. But his WAR number is so high, Brock, because he just does everything else so well.
Yeah. Not his FWAR number. His baseball reference number is pretty darn high because the other one is not. I was saying to I think Lyle last week, help me understand this because at that point I want to say Cal with the baseball reference WAR was a 4.5 and Julio was like a 3.9. I'm like, no. I'm watching this every day. This is not even close. You can't even put them in the same stratosphere. Sorry. I mean, that's just if that's the calculations, if that's the algorithm, then that algorithm is wrong because my eyes see it, the numbers see it, and there's just no way in the world that those two can be that close. F4 starts to get a whole lot more
That's
centrical.
true.
Yes, that starts to make.
They have him at 2.4 versus 3.4 for Baseball Reference. So, I mean, there's a full run difference.
And they have
obviously.
Cal at nearly a 6 WAR player in that. Like that feels about right. Cal feels about 3 times the player that Julio is this year. And I think Jeff Passan said this pretty well, Salk.
Yeah.
And this is why it's fairly polarizing. I think Maura cut this last week, and Jeff, again, all over it. We're so close to it, but Jeff, kind of talked about his process and his nerddom and how he goes about our segment each and every week. And about Julio, I think this is about as good a reasoning as there is for why this is such a polarizing conversation.
And it's interesting to look at the last 7 days of Julio Rodriguez every week because they are never the same.
Right.
Some weeks he has great power and struggles to get on base. Some weeks he's got a high batting average but a low slugging percentage. Some weeks his wins above replacement are lofted up there because of his defense. And I think what we've seen with Julio, and the reason that we can't put our thumb on who is Julio Rodriguez, is because we've never seen that consistent version of him that's doing the same thing week in, week out. And it's not like an inconsistency where you have like these valleys, these nadirs, and then these absolute huge peaks. It's usually just somewhere in the realm of, he was good this week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me read you this from 425. Brock says, the locals arguing that Julio shouldn't be in the game are the same people who wake up every day complaining about him with Julio derangement syndrome, and now they have to defend this stupidity against the rest of the country who are more objective about his talents in his age 24 season. Neither Cal nor Judge hit 190 in their age 24 season. Williamson is older than Julio.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that side of it. And then the other side of it is he's got the 128th best OPS in baseball. He's got a 695 on base plus slugging.
Mm-hmm.
He's hit 1 home run since May 27th.
How crazy is that?
He's hit 1 home run since May 27th.
Yeah.
His 3 peers that he's going to be getting on that plane with to Atlanta have been the opposite.
Yeah, there's
they have
no
been
doubt,
consistent,
Brock.
consistent.
There's no doubt when you look at Julio's season so far this year, and if you only look at his offensive numbers for this year, Julio Rodriguez is obviously not an all-star. The case to be made for Julio is A, his defense. It's been unbelievable. Yep. As good as anybody's in the game. And it matters. I mean, it's drastically affecting the numbers for his value. His base running, if and when he does get on base, he's a threat all the time. And then the next 2 things you have to argue are a little nebulous, and not everyone will agree with these. I have always said, and this is not a new thought because of Julio, I've said this for a decade plus. I personally look at what a player did in the second half of last year because I think it's relevant. If we're going to say that the second half of the year means more, why wouldn't we include it in your all-star voting? I would look at what he's done this year and what he's done since the all-star break last year. He had a very good second half last year and was incredibly productive as part of the Mariners' run late. I think that is part of it because I think what you do in August and September should matter more than what you do in April and May. So personally, I factor that in. I'm going to factor in his ballpark a little bit as well. And then I'm going to also just use the word that's at the, heart of All-Star Game, star. Julio is a star, and some of what he's accomplished in his career factors into this. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not necessarily saying that his numbers have been better than Adele or Springer or anybody else. And Springer's a star in his own right, so I'm a little surprised that history doesn't get him in.
Toronto is having a tremendous year and sitting in first place. And
they are now, though. I mean, when the All-Star thing was done, I don't know whether they had gone on their 9-game win streak or whatever it was. So maybe that didn't quite factor all the way in as well. Yeah, and George Springer will probably end up being on this team when it's said and done. It would be it's a snub right now, but I'm not I don't know. I'm happy for Julio. I think stars should be in the All-Star game, and Julio Rodriguez is a star, and I'm glad he's there.
Well, 2 other little nuggets here. His home road splits are drastic.
Yeah,
home has been just brutal for him. Right, you look at I mentioned earlier that OPS of 695 out on the road, it's 795. I mean, out on the road, it's an all-star caliber offensive player with 7 home runs. At home, it's a 594 OPS with just 4 home runs. I mean, the ballpark has really affected him this year, and the home road splits are very, very telling in that regard. And
and maybe that's why the rest of the country looks at him as like, hey, he's actually really good. Every time he shows up at my park, he looks great.
Yeah, and he may go on one of these little heaters before the All-Star break, and he may go to New York and hit one of those kind of chintzy right field home runs and then pull another one. I'll say this too, and this is my hope, and I know it was in Lyle's email last night. I hope he's an all-star because they want to incentivize him of being in that derby. They've not named the full complement of who's going to be in the home run derby 1 week from right now. I hope this little nod was like, hey man, you're going to be here anyway, and it would sure be nice to get your bat. And for this team, it would be really nice to get that swing path and get him going, because the derby for his swing and his production has been a good thing in his career.
Yeah, I wanted to make kind of a proclamation about that while we're on the topic. Since he's going to be there anyway, I could not be more firm to believe this. He needs to do the derby. Like, get the baseball off the ground, and doing the derby and pulling fly balls in the air should do exactly that. By the way, you know what happened the last time he did the derby? He happened to go on a 5-week stretch where he hit 414 with a 1,200 OPS. He was getting the ball off the ground.
And selfishly, I just want to see his BP thrower, because that guy is superhuman. He's the greatest BP robot thrower, home run derby guy ever in the history of baseball. Oh, it's unbelievable.
I think it would help him.
Lyle, it's funny you say that, because that was a Scott thing. I remember talking to Scott Service about that last year before the All-Star break, and him saying, God, Julio's got to go do the home run derby because it helps him take the ball out in front and elevate it. That was specifically his point, and it's interesting you say the same thing, because that was exactly what Scott thought. So I'll concur with both of you guys. I hope he does. Plus, it'd be pretty fun to have Julio and Cal. What if they take each other on in the derby? How fun would that be? An all-Mariner derby matchup?
Awesome.
The crazy thing is, and I hate to say it, I think I would pick Julio in that.
I might too. Yeah. He's done it. He knows how to do it. Now, Julio's also gotten tired late in those things, right? Like, he's been really good in the first couple rounds and then faded a little bit late. So maybe it matters where they meet. But yeah, a Julio-Cal derby matchup. Now, Cal does have the advantage of the switch hitter thing. I think it is an advantage, right, to switch halfway through. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a disadvantage. Maybe you get into a groove and that takes you out of it.
And I'm worried about Scott. I'm not going to lie. Or Todd. Is it Todd Raleigh? What's his dad's name? Todd. Todd. Yeah, I'm worried about Todd. I think the pressure at that moment is
a lot of pressure. He's an ex-player, though. He's a minor leaguer, coach, etc.
He's got one son catching. He's got another one in the box.
How crazy is it that Cal has a 15-year-old brother?
How do you keep yourself together in that moment? I don't know. We'll see. It'll be worth
Imagine
watching.
Having kids 12 years apart.
I'm 11 years older than my sister.
I can't imagine, man. The idea, like, so my youngest is 11. The idea of having a baby next year is like the worst thing you could say. Like, I can't imagine doing that.
You got fixed?
Huh? Oh, heck yeah. Dr. Snip, baby. Let's go. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen, because the idea of another kid 11 or 12 years later, I love my kids. I had a blast hanging out with them over the last few days. I mean, like, a lot of fun. I don't want any more of them, and I certainly don't want one now.
Your energy level in the mid-40s with a newborn?
No chance. No chance. Not even a chance of a chance.